Hi folks, back in the Cobb TV studios with Chairman Mike Boyce for his weekly visit. And boy, time really gets away from you. It seems like we had a lot of time before we were going to go on the road with the town hall and the budgets, but it's creeping up on us.
Yeah, 3 weeks away. It's time. This week's video will give you we'll do a short video itself about what the tax assessments look like and how houses are assessed, what you need to be looking at on your tax bill. And then next week, we'll have a short presentation on the journey of how we got to where we got, because the $30 million hole we've been saying for months now didn't come overnight. And then 2 weeks after that was when we'll have the retreat on June 12th at the Cobb Civic Center, where everyone will be invited to hear us talk about how we're going to shape the millage rate and the budget for 2019.
All right. And as you mentioned, we're going to show a video right here in which you make a little cameo in as well. We call it a did you know video. It's really about what is entailed in your property tax, where your money goes, and how it affects how much you pay into the county's general fund. And here's that video now.
Let's watch it.
Here are 4 things you may not know about your property tax bill. For those younger than 62 years old, on average, more than 70% of your bill goes to the Cobb County School District. Cobb County's general fund is a distant second. Then a sliver of the payment goes to the Parks Fund, followed by the Fire Fund. In fact, the percentage of Cobb County property tax bills that goes to the county's general fund in recent years has declined from about 19% of your bill in 2012 to about 12.7% last year. That's primarily because of the floating homestead exemption. If you live in your primary home, you likely have the homestead exemption listed on your tax bill. What many people don't know is that Cobb has a floating homestead exemption, which means as the value of your home goes up, the floating exemption keeps the rate at which you pay into the county general fund frozen at the level at which you bought your home or at least applied for the exemption. Here's what that looks like. We picked a random longtime Cobb County resident. We'll call him Mike. Mike's house has been reassessed to a value more than twice the amount it was 15 years ago, but yet he pays the county general fund less money than he did in 2002. When I looked at my own property tax bill, I found my home's assessment is up 11% over the past 5 years, but I contributed $40 less to the general fund than in 2013. Remember, this affects only the county's general fund. The tax assessor says 52% of all residential properties in Cobb have that floating exemption, which last year saved taxpayers but cost the county's general fund more than $23 million. Our finance director calculates after taking into account a predicted increase, the county can expect a boost in the neighborhood of $6 million in the general fund if the tax assessor's prediction comes true. Next, the Brave Stadium. The general fund is one of 5 sources of funding for the project. The Cumberland Special Services District, where businesses in the area tax themselves. The Special Services District 2, the already formed $3 a night hotel motel tax, and a rental car fee. The remaining money going towards stadium debt does come from the general fund, and this year we expect to pay from that fund $6.4 million for debt service, $1.2 million for capital maintenance, and around $1 million more for police, traffic, and insurance. That accounts for about 2% of the general fund budget, and since the other buckets are filling up faster than predicted and the area around the stadium is attracting more development than expected, the county hopes on chipping away at the general fund obligation over the coming years. And finally, for reasons that have been discussed prior, Cobb County has managed to keep its millage rate well below our metro neighbors that have a similar population, all the while providing similar, if not superior, services. And if you live in unincorporated Cobb, you pay far less than your neighbors who live in one of the county's 6 cities. This is a comparison with school taxes included. At the same time, the population of Cobb County continues to grow, putting more pressure on county departments to serve the growing population. And we're back, and that just gives people a lot of information about where their tax dollar goes.
Right, and if you're lucky, you'll win an Emmy for that one, Ross.
Or whatever the awards are for,
for
county videos.
Yeah, for government television.
Yeah, exactly. And as you mentioned, this is a journey that we've been through and that we're now going through to educate people about how we got here. And that's just something that as people have read, we've been putting together our message.
Sure.
but it's one that you plan on rolling out over the next couple weeks.
Right, and I've been in the county now about 20 years, not quite 20 years, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody doing what we're doing. You obviously have the public hearings that are mandated by law, where everybody has to come to the board to hear the budget proposals and the millage rate proposals. But I don't remember in my history here in the county of anybody going out to the people and telling them, this is what we're trying to do, and we want to engage you in a conversation and let us know what you think about our proposal about how we're going to spend your money.
And as you know, I've worked around Metro Atlanta since the time I've been here as well, but it just seems like the people who live in this county, they want to be involved in this kind of conversation.
Absolutely. It's all about a matter of respect. And what I've learned here is that if you engage them in a conversation before you go do something, they really appreciate that, and they'll work with you. And that's what I'm counting on happening with these town halls.
And what kind of feedback have you been getting so far when it comes to the emails, just being out in the community, about how much people are paying attention to this process?
Well, sometimes no news is good news. Obviously, we had a lot of interest last year after the retreat in October, and then as I announced my what I was going to be asking for, the 1.1 mil. But most of the emails are still focused on the libraries and, of course, now the extensions. I think what people are doing right now, though, and this is just an opinion, is that they're doing what I asked them to do, is just be patient. Let's present our side of the story first, and then we're going to come out to you with that side of the story, and we're going to hear your side of how you feel about that. And I think that that seems to be working. Everybody's, the newspapers are reporting what we're doing. I think it's been very fair coverage and balanced coverage. So I couldn't ask for more than that. And as I tell people, if we can't defend what we're doing, we shouldn't be doing it. But I know these commissioners, given the facts, will find a way to arrive at a decision. There'll be a consensus, and then we'll move forward from there.
And as we get ready for these town halls, you've been making this presentation in bits and pieces. Sure. Often to some groups. I've been with you at several of them. And what's been the reaction from the people once they see what the journey the county's been through? Oh,
I think most of it has been, I didn't realize that. It's the information we're throwing out there, because it's pretty black and white. They just see how we progressed from something where we didn't do certain things, or we did certain things, and the consequences of those. And now that we're truly, to use the old proverbial, at the end of our rope. I've been saying this for months now. We have no more buckets we can raid. We can't rob from Peter anymore because Peter left town. This is a time when the commissioners are, I think, have to stand up and do those things that the voters elect us to do, which is make the hard choices. But it's easier to make a hard choice when you have all the facts. And I think that there's a number of mediums we've been using, emails, these videos, these presentations, even when we went out to talk with the senior centers. That was the first opportunity we had to tell people what the story was, where we are. So it's not a surprise this time. We're not dropping them right in their lap saying, okay, hey, we got $30 million, we haven't been talking about it, and now we got to fix it in a couple weeks. No, this has been a months-long effort, and people know about that. So they're just waiting to see what we're going to do, and that's exactly what should be done.
And you mentioned that you've asked for the 1.1 mils, but that's been characterized as a figure that really kind of keeps the head above water.
Just barely. It keeps everything open that's open right now. It also addresses some savings and some efficiency we found. But what it does, it carries this year's budget and the programs that are in this budget, it carries it forward. But as I've also been saying over many forums, there are some known costs that we've been deferring for a long time, and we simply cannot hold off on buying them any longer. So that's when I say that I'll be encouraging a higher millage rate. It's because of the facts that I'll be presenting both to the commissioners and to the voters, that there are a number of large-scale projects out there that we've known about for at least 4 years in some cases, and now it's time to pay that bill, which means the millage rate has to be higher than 1.1. If we don't do that, that means we continue to defer these projects, or we don't do certain things, which is going to inevitably lead to cuts in services. And I genuinely believe that people in this county, for the most part, like what they have. They appreciate the high quality of life they have here. And now they're being made aware of the true cost of that. They may begrudgingly admit that they want to pay it, but that's okay. I mean, it's our money, and you never want to pay a bill unless you've fully shown that it's a bill that no longer can be put off. And this is a bill that can longer be put off.
And one of the aspects of it I think is often overlooked is that even as we deal with these budget issues, we're also dealing with a increasing population. We're now
Sure.
Cobb is the second most densely populated county in the state, and that puts pressure on us to provide these services.
Well, it's the famous line, when I first when I got married and had I had my first child, there are certain costs associated with that, and then I had two more children after that, and so obviously it's more expensive to live in a household like that. And then as my kids got older, they got more expensive. I don't think that how we run the county is any different. We have a family here in Cobb County, and the family has grown by 300,000 people over the last 30 years. So there's more things we have to do. And I recognize the fact that people think there's a direct proportional link between their taxes and the service we provide and the revenue that's generated by the county. That's just simply not true because of, once again, the homestead exemption and the floating home exemption.
And during your presentation, we talked a lot about SPLOST projects and what that means, how that fits into the budget. But you and I were out at a ribbon cutting this week that shows what SPLOST is doing in our community.
Absolutely. I think SPLOST originally was meant to buy big capital projects. It was meant to build buildings. And we somehow over time got away from that. But the clinic that we opened up in Smyrna this week is exactly the kind of SPLOST project that I think the intent was passed by the legislature. We took an existing building and we renovated it and turned it into an incredibly fantastic facility that has all kinds of services it provides to a growing population. As we all know, we have a major clinic down on Counter Services Road, but all those facilities, like our homes, they get old and over time they need to be renovated. Well, we were in a building in the Smyrna clinic that quite frankly needed to be condemned. So the SPLOST was passed in 2016, thanks to the efforts by the Board of Health and then their staff, convinced the board to fund the renovation of this health clinic. And I'm going to tell you, when I drove up there, I thought I was driving into a brand new building. It was not. That building was already there, but it looks like they built it from the ground up. They did a fantastic job, and that is money that is well spent that's going to take care of a lot of, particularly mothers with children here in the county, and educate them best how to raise children so that we don't have increasing healthcare costs going to be put on the healthcare system because we don't take care of the mothers and their children.
Right. And we can't let this talk go without realizing we're heading into the Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, right.
For many, it's the unofficial start of the summer,
sure.
But for a lot of folks, especially yourself, it means a lot more than that.
It does. I have a family where they have names on the wall, the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. Both my parents were in the military. All my brothers were in the military. I had a son that was in the military. So the veterans do a special thing, but this is a weekend where we recognize those veterans who paid the ultimate price. This is a very special time where we should just take some time on Monday to acknowledge that all the freedoms that we have in this country sometimes are paid for with a very terrible price. It's a very personal price. And I know that Americans are patriotic as they come, but I just hope that we don't spend this weekend just totally forgetting about the fact that that famous line, freedom is not free, and throughout this country and overseas, there are cemeteries with men and women who did their job by serving their country, and in doing so, let us enjoy the freedoms that we have today.
All right, well said, and I hope everybody has a chance to take that day and use it for some thoughtful remembrance. I've been out at the Marietta National Cemetery for their activities out there for the past decade, it seems, and they always have a big crowd. So that's it for this edition. Again, here's the dates for the town halls that are coming up, and subscribe to our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and everything else Cobb County puts out to keep on track of it. And next week we'll have some more preview of the town halls, and keep that going as we approach those dates.
All right. Well, everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you.